if I can show others how to do something easier because they were never taught that, they never got a good mentor or they never got good training, and I can show somebody in a quick post that is, like you guys have seen my posts, I make them very, very readable and very easy to follow along. And I think that's always been my goal, is like, if I can make your day-to-day life easier, not only from being in-house or being a lawyer, being a CEO, whatever the case is, but also make you happier in your career, like, I've done my job.
I'm Hal Marcus.
And I'm Memme Onwudiwe.
And this is Meeting of the Minds, the legal AI podcast from Evisort.
We interview lawyers, professors, and legal operations pioneers that are pushing the envelope.
Leaders using technology to drive great business outcomes and shape the future of the profession. Memme, happy 2025 to you.
Bonne année, Hal.
Big new year ahead. This is our first new year as part of Workday, and I'm looking forward to all the great conversations we're going to have on this podcast in the coming months.
I'm looking forward to it too, especially because I think in 2025, we're going to see a broader recognition of how AI is benefiting our everyday lives, but specifically how legal and in the contracting use cases, folks are getting benefit from these kinds of technologies.
Yeah, we've got a number of interviewees lined up. I think these are going to be fascinating conversations. We've started out this year with a great one. We had a terrific conversation with Brittany Leonard. She is, among other things, Executive VP for the Association of Corporate Counsel for Central Florida. She's an experienced in-house counsel, and she has a big following on LinkedIn. Some people call her the GC of LinkedIn because she shares a great deal about in-house legal practice.
Yeah, we talked about taking a more holistic approach to being a general counsel, which includes interacting, collaborating with other business units. It also includes being a part of the broader legal community, engaging in events and networking, et cetera. And we also talked about the role of technology in being a modern general counsel.
Yeah, we also talked about something near and dear to my heart and something that she posts a great deal about, how to be happy and fulfilled in a legal role and the importance of community and mentorship in that.
Indeed. Well, let's listen.
Brittany Leonard, thanks so much for joining us here on Meeting of the Minds.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We've been really looking forward to talking to you. And a key reason we wanted to do that is a big theme for us this year, and we think for the industry and the technology, is bridging the gap between legal teams and all of the other business teams across the enterprise. And you're in many ways like an embodiment of that. So with that in mind, you have something we don't always see in the people we speak to. You had a pre-legal career. Can you tell us a bit about the work you did?
Yeah, so I guess before law school and during law school and right a little bit after waiting for the bar exam results, I worked for a local city and I worked there for about 8 years. And it was very informative for me because it showed me how a business ran. It showed me the challenges of a business. It showed me what to do, what not to do, the things that I would learn from. And I think that, we'll get into this later, but that catapulted the rest of my career and where I wanted my career to head and what direction and path I took for my career.
Wow. That kind of path gives you a more holistic view when it comes to being a general counsel. How do you define the role of general counsel, especially when it comes to driving business outcomes and contributing to the business as a whole?
I'm really big about company growth and strategy. And I think if you are a general counsel and you just sit in the legal seat and say, I'm only going to do legal work, it's a severe disadvantage for organizations today because you really need to be at the forefront to make decisions, navigate challenges, solve problems proactively so they don't become a bigger problem down the road, that sort of thing. And being a business partner and really striving to maintain that balance of like, hey, I can do more than just push legal papers back and forth. And when you're able to show that and when you're able to contribute in that way, I think it just opens up so many opportunities and doors, and you're looked at as basically part of leadership, an officer of the company. And that is something that I've done for a long time, and it served me well throughout my career.
Can I ask, are there any concrete examples of maybe situations where your kind of business thinking in that legal role was able to bridge that gap a little bit for folks?
Yeah, there's so many. One of them in particular, I remember getting an issue coming down the pipeline and they're like, hey, there's nothing we can do. What's our worst case scenario here? We have exhausted all options. And I said, let me try. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, let me get a team together from different departments, from development to product to customer service. And I got about 8 different departments together, and we came together, we collaborated, and we fixed what was wrong and the problems that needed to be fixed. And I basically said, hey, give me 8 weeks to solve this and make the customer one of our most loyal customers, if you will. And they're like, I don't think it's going to happen. And I ended up talking to the other side. I said, give me 8 weeks. Let me solve this. We ended up solving it in 6 weeks. And now they are one of the most loyal customers for that company at this time.
So you assembled a team to take a non-legal approach to what was perceived as a legal problem. And as an ex-litigator, by the way, I've got mixed feelings about this, but regardless. So you actually just went, that's not a traditional legal approach, right? That's not the kind of thing that GC is known to usually do.
And I think for me, it's think about legal. When anybody hears legal, they're like, oh God, what's happening? What's the problem? And people get so aggressive so quickly and they close down, shut down, put their walls up. And I was like, hey, let's just solve this from a business standpoint. Let's just make the customer happy from an overall perspective and not let's start shooting off legal letters back and forth, because that doesn't solve the actual problem for the business. And when I did that, it was just a mind-blowing tactic of, oh, wow, we can actually solve an issue, not have an issue and go our separate ways. We can solve an issue and continue on and have a better partnership than we had before this whole thing happened. So, and that was something that was probably one of the highlights of my career for sure.
So I'm trying to picture that meeting in the conference room when you brought in the people from the other teams. Were they oh my God, what did we do? GC is calling us for this meeting.
That's where I think for me, I do a really, really good job of wanting to know everybody in different departments. I don't care if you feel like you're a first level employee or if you've been there for 10 years, I want to make sure that we've spoken, you know who I am. So like you said, how I don't want someone to come in and be like, oh my God, legal's here. What did I do wrong? I want people to already know who I am, to feel comfortable, to be like, hey, she probably needs us for something proactively. And that's luckily when that situation had arose, I had already been with that company for a long, long time. So people knew who I was, how I like to solve things, and that if you saw me, generally 99% of the time was not a bad thing. So it was really great to be like, oh, how can we help you? And then they would take that and they learned from that, and they were able to bring things to me proactively because they saw how well that worked. And they didn't just hide the ball for weeks or months on end because they were too scared to come to legal. They actually came proactively to make sure that issues were done quicker than normal, if you will.
And can we get a little bit more information, even past your work with the city, your work in the district courts, and just more of your background from that perspective?
Yeah. So, I took a role where I clerked in law school, and I ended up being a long time. It was supposed to be only a summer, and I think it was almost 2 years. And to me, that was almost like a master class in legal reasoning and strategy, if you will, and really diving into, okay, not knowing, especially, in your first, second year of law school, you have no idea what you want to do. And so that kind of gave me a glimpse of how the courts operated, how judges operated. And obviously the federal court is very different from state courts. And so seeing how opinions are written, all that kind of jazz that I would have never, ever, I talk about this till I'm blue in the face, but law school just does not prepare you for the real world, if you will. So that really got me a head start on everything. And it was just a very informative experience of, hey, this is what a day-to-day life is like. Then you have obviously firm life, and that taught me a lot about customer service under pressure and how to deal with different clientele and obviously the billable hour and things like that. So you kind of mushed what I did. And then this is probably I guess the word's forethought that I had is let me get experience in all sort of different practice areas so that when I go in-house, the goal was always to go in-house, and we can dive a little bit into that. But I wanted to go in-house because that's where I found my stride. You can intersect law and business means so much to me. Probably more. I always say I'm a business person before I'm a legal person. But that's where in the law firm, I chose to get experience in a whole plethora of different practice areas so that I could be well-rounded as a GC and kind of skyrocket my career, if you will, because I was the youngest GC to go in-house at the time in Florida, way back when. We won't name dates or times or anything like that, but way back when I was the youngest GC to go in-house. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to go in-house. So I took the experiences I had with the district court and the law firm to get as much experience as I can in different areas to be able to hit the ground running, if you will.
And one can see that you had that path in mind, even in college, it seems. So, I mean, you have a BA in business administration. Normally it's English lit, poli-sci, government. That's not the typical legal path.
For me, I always wanted something more than just a poli-sci or a psych degree. You hear so many times, like, what do you do with that other than going to either law school or getting your doctorate as a psychologist or something like that? Neither of which I had any desire to do. So getting that business degree afforded me the ability to not only elevate the skill set that I was already learning in my first role with the city, but it was more so, okay, you want to go in-house, let's learn how a business operates. And then I swore I'd never go back to school after I got my law degree. And I was like, you know what, let's get an MBA. And I think that gives me a great advantage to say, hey, like, I love leadership. I love leading people and showing them how to proactively be empathetic and like really understand how different personalities work and how they make decisions and how different people work differently, their strategies for thinking, all that kind of jazz. But I really wanted to dive into like the finances of like a cash flow, balance sheet, profit and loss statement, all that kind of stuff that I think really sets you apart as a GC when you don't have to know every single detail, but when you know that kind of overall, I think that really, really sets you apart as like, hey, I'm not only here to review the legal work, if you will, but I'm also here to help you strategize and make decisions as a whole company. And I think that's something that you can bridge the gap between legal advice and actionable business strategies when you have that elevated mindset, if you will. Down the line, I think when that exact time is, I cannot predict the future, but I do see myself eventually being a COO and then a CEO. And so I wanted to make sure that I had executive knowledge, C-suite knowledge, however you want to phrase it, however you want to word it, to be able to, I think a lot of that ability to become a COO or a CEO is really, really being a good leader. And a good leader to me is one that communicates, one that's empathetic, one that values their employees and really dives into wanting them to grow and foster a great culture for them to grow in. And a lot of that was focused on that. And that's really where I wanted my focus and my skills to deepen even more than it was, so to be able to get to that next chapter of my life soon.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so curious because we've talked about the importance of collaborating with other departments. But as we talked about, in law school, you're not taught about how to persuade other departments in business, and you're not really taught how to manage really in law firms as well. For folks who would love to bring these other departments in, but don't even know where to start when it comes to building those kinds of corporate relationships with business units, what suggestions would you have for general counsels trying to pivot their relationship with other business units?
You're so right, baby. Like, it's so funny you say that like that. Like, even in law school and in the law firm setting, like, it's not about collaboration. And it stinks to say that, but in law school, they're like, okay, y'all graded on a curve and y'all ranked. So of course, for me, someone competitive, I'm like, all right, well, nothing less than number one. It's going to work out for me. And that's the mindset of so many people, is like, me. This is how you have to function in law school, in a firm setting. Even in a firm, when you're an associate, it's like, what can I do to climb the ladder to become a partner? And so when you go in-house, you really have to step back and say, okay, how can I collaborate? And I think that's why I wanted to dive in with the executive MBA, is like, I know what I've had really great leadership and I've had really bad leadership. And so knowing what is great, knowing what is bad, and knowing what, I guess I've also had mediocre, if you will, I wanted to make sure that I focused on collaboration. I think collaboration for me is really the secret sauce, if you will, to be a really great executive and general counsel, CEO, whatever you want to call it, because you're building relationships across departments. And when you align legal and business together, and it's an explosive nature of people coming together and like seeing, especially in the GC role, seeing legal as more than just legal. I would have never been able to get all that stuff done with the issue that we had talked about a few minutes ago if I had not been able to collaborate with all these departments beforehand, and they knew who I was. They felt comfortable with me. They felt like they could talk to me and they didn't feel like they were in trouble, that sort of thing. And so if you're asking for examples or advice, I would definitely say do all that you can to meet different people in different departments. And even if it's like, hey, can we have a 15-minute coffee chat on Zoom? Or, hey, I see you have a meeting coming up, like, client meeting or what have you, can I sit in on it? Or, oh, I see you're doing a product demonstration. Like, I'd love to see how our product, I think that's a huge, huge thing. You have to know in-house how the products work, whether it's professional services or products or whatever you have to know what is the bread and butter of your company? Why does your company operate? What do they do? And I think a great way is to say, hey, I want to know how XYZ product operates. Can you set me in on the demo that you have with so-and-so? And just absorbing that knowledge. And you can even say, hey, like, I'm not going to speak unless you want me to, but I just want to learn from you guys. Like, even sitting with product or development team, hey, I want to see what you guys are working on and what's going on. And I think one of the ones that I really did, I got myself involved in like meetings where they're like, hey, we're building this new feature. We want other people's opinions. I love those meetings. And then I even love the ones that are like, hey, we're having problems with these clients, but they're not really big problems, but they're about to be, or they may be down the road. And hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And being proactive, I think being in those meetings is vital. And that's where you get that collaboration, is saying, hey, I'd love to just learn. Like, if you come in a legal position, whether it's GC, senior counsel, whatever, and you say, I know everything, I'm a lawyer, that is the quickest way to leave that position and just not have anyone like you. So if you're like, hey, I want to learn from you, XYZ salesperson or XYZ manager, or whatever the case is, because if you think about it, you can learn from literally, I say this all the time, you can learn from anyone. You can learn from someone you meet at the airport. You can learn, like, I just had a 30-minute conversation with someone that I was sitting on a subway with the other day. You can literally learn from it, and I will talk to any. At this point, back then I was not this open and able to network so easily, but now I'll talk to anyone. I don't care if you're sitting next to me on the plane, wherever. Obviously, if you have your headphones in, I won't bother you. But you learn so much from so many different people. And if you're open to learning, it's so crucial.
It sounds like what you're saying is there's no blueprint for this. There's no automatic path for legal to have all of these inroads to the different teams. You just have to take that initiative, infuse yourself into things, introduce yourself to people.
And you really have to just say, hey, this is nothing bad. Like, I just want to learn from you. And if you break it down and you're like, hey, I don't know about this. And I will say, in my product teams know, like, hey, I don't know about this. Teach it to me like I'm a kindergartner. And they start laughing. I'm like, no, but for real, like, I just want to learn. Like, I want to be able to help you and deepen my experience. And people love to talk. People love to talk about what they're doing. People love to talk about things that they're working on. So they're more open if you're just kind and throwing a joke here and there. And it's so easy to make collaborations happen, partnerships happen internally across the organization. If you're just human, you just got to be relaxed and say, hey, this organization is bigger than just legal, if you will.
But surely you get some resistance, right? Are there any impediments to that? Or, I mean, you've got a winning personality, that helps. But there've got to be times when someone's just got their guards up.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, speaking to your winning personality, I had one when I came into one of my companies and he was like, I don't like legal. I won't work with legal. The last GC that was here, I basically told that if my papers come across your desk, you just approve it. You don't look at it. I think you guys take too long and you go back and forth too much and you put too much pressure on deals. And I just don't want to deal with you. And I said, I get that. I was like, some legals are just awful, aren't they? And I started like making jokes about lawyers and stuff like that. And he started laughing. He's like, yeah.
Wait, there are jokes about lawyers? I've not come across any of these.
Yeah. I mean, literally 9 times out of 10, I act like I'm not a lawyer. Like, I'll be like, oh, yeah, lawyers, blah, blah, blah. And like, even someone the other day came up to the door to solicit something. I'm like, and he's talking about like, oh, you have to sign this, whatever. I was like, God, lawyers are such a mess, aren't they? And he's like, yeah, they're so awful. But no, he was like, I don't want to work with you. I have no desire to work with you. And I said, okay. I said, how about this? I said, when your stuff comes across my desk, how about I call you? I tell you what came across my desk, what I have to approve or look at or whatever the case is. And how about we work on it together? We go through it together. He was like, all right. He's like, that's a fair compromise. Like, I'll deal with that. So we did that for about 4 to 6 weeks. And whenever the time came, like 4 or 6 weeks, whatever, he said he had gotten busy and he said, you know what? I don't need to do this with you. I said, okay, you don't want to be on these calls? He said, no. He goes, I trust you so much at this point. I know you know what you're doing and you want the business more so than you're digging into every single legal nuance, if you will. He said, I really like your approach. And as far as I'm concerned, you're the best general counsel I've ever worked with. And that literally made my day. Someone who was just had no desire to work with me whatsoever. And someone who to this day still compliments my work and the things that I do. I am very, very appreciative of that. Very, very appreciative.
Wow. I mean, to Hal's point, though, it's not just your winning personality that enables that. You also are not just outgoing, you're an influencer, right? You're known as the general counsel of LinkedIn. You have followers, people who have really bought into this incredible brand you've built. I'm curious, what inspired you to start sharing your content online? And what impact has it had on your career more broadly? Because I know a lot of folks see and think about this stuff, but curious what it's like to actually do it.
It's had a profound impact. One, we'll start there. The reason I started, I think, really for me, it was during the pandemic. And people say, oh, I just wanted to talk to someone. That's why I started posting. It wasn't that for me. I still felt like there was a lot that needed to happen in the legal industry to make it better. And even today, I'm sure there's people out there that are like, God, being a lawyer is the worst thing. And I get that. There's so much burnout. There's so much worry. But I really wanted to be an advocate for others to say, hey, I've been in that miserable position. I've been there. I know what it feels like to be stressed and to hate life and be like, why did I go to law school? Why am I in this career? And when I started posting, it was almost like an outlet for me, but an outlet to help others as well, if that makes sense. I wanted to share content with other professionals that felt a desire. And it's not even, it's grown. If I looked at my stats the other day, I would say probably 50 to 60% legal, but then the rest are founders and CEOs. And I think it was more of I just want to share business life in general. I just want to make people know that there's more to life than just grinding it out. And I will be the first one to be like, okay, we got this done. What's next? What's next? What's next? But at the end of the day, there's so much more about connecting with others and helping others. And if I can show others how to do something easier because they were never taught that, they never got a good mentor or they never got good training. And I can show somebody in a quick post that is you guys have seen my posts. I make them very, very readable and very easy to follow along. And I think that's always been my goal is if I can make your day-to-day life easier, not only from being in-house or being a lawyer, being a CEO, whatever the case is, but also make you happier in your career, I've done my job. I get so many messages from people that are 5 years in and people that are 20 years in. And they're like, you just make things so simplistic to understand. And then on the other end, you just make me excited and happy to go to work. And that just seals the deal for me. That's why I started this, and seeing people's reactions and seeing people enjoy what I do. That just literally makes my heart so happy. And I'm so excited to help others. And I love doing what I do. And I think from what has it done for my career, it's really helped me not stay in the shadows. I think for a very, very long time, I would go to even in-person networking events and I would stand in the corner and people would think, oh, who is she? Blah, blah, blah. Does she work here? Is she a paralegal? Whatever the case is, whatever they thought. Because I've never said anything. Obviously, like I said, I was the youngest in-house attorney at the time years and years ago. And so it's really gotten me out of my shell to go up to anybody. I don't care if you are the CEO of something or if you are the janitor. I don't care. I will go up to you and say, hey, how's your day? What are you doing? How's life? Et cetera, et cetera. And that has created opportunities for me that I would have never imagined for myself because I learned how to connect and build relationships in a way that made sense to me. When everyone said, oh, this is the only way you can do it, hand out your business card and hope to hear from them. And that just wasn't cutting it for me. That never worked. And I felt it was always a me situation. And I wanted to be able to give to others before I ever asked for help in return, if you will.
And part of all of that relationship building you've been focusing on has brought you to an active role with the Association of Corporate Counsel. So what impact has that had on you? What have you learned from that as you work with people in that capacity?
So it's funny you asked that. I'm really, really close with the people at ACC, and not only from ACC, your annual meetings, but I'm very involved in our local chapter, vice president of the board currently. I will be president next year. I've done so many events with them. I've done CCU, which is their Corporate Counsel University. I've been involved in that. So every step of the way that ACC has gotten something new or been able to expand, if you will, I've always wanted to be involved in that because I feel like they were really pivotal for me when I went in-house to like even the forums. If you go back, God, a decade ago, like you'll see a lot of anonymous questions on the forums. That was probably me. I'm like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And they were really, really pivotal in my career. So I always feel the need to pay it forward, if you will, pay it backwards, pay it forward, whatever the word is, because I think they do a really good job of classes that are not only just legal focused, but things that like help the business move forward, help be more agile, tech focused, all that kind of stuff that is for the future of law. And now they're even into legal ops as well, which I will be a part of in April in Chicago. So it's just really, really expansive of everything that they're doing.
One way we've been able to stay so close as friends is because I see it at the ACC conferences. I see it at clock events for legal operations. I see it at Legal Week. I see it at legalops.com, at Consero, et cetera.
Consero. I know I'm trying to think of them all. Consero, legal ops,
not to mention webinars, right? We're talking virtually as we speak. So, I mean, there is such ample communities for lawyers, general counsel, legal operations leaders, people in our domain. Do you have advice for folks who might be rightly overwhelmed by the opportunity of events? They might not know why to even go, what to do when they get there. Just any advice for folks looking to leverage these communities more?
I think it really depends on how we kind of talked earlier about, I'm really big about learning people's personalities and how they operate and how they work. I think it depends on who you are as a person. Like, do you find really big value in a group of 3,000 people where you could go to like ACC annual and meet all these people, but you may not be able to build relationships with them right then and there because there's just so much. It's so overwhelming. Or do you want to go to maybe a smaller event that will serve like a regional event, say, because Clock has regional events, ACC has regional events. Obviously, there's Consero, that kind of thing, like all those kind of events that you can meet people in like a smaller setting. Like one of the things I did this year, and I just got back from last week, was the Latin American Corporate Council. It's put on by a company in England, and it was phenomenal. Memme knows this, but I spend half my time in Miami and I spent half my time in Orlando. So it was in Miami and it was great. I was actually in Boston, maybe, and I flew from Boston to Miami. And I got to hang out with a bunch of my close friends there in-house down in Miami and got to be a part of a new organization that it was just really, really meaningful and really impactful. And I think that's one of the things I'm going to do this year is try to go to more events that I haven't been to. Like, obviously, I know you have Space Law coming up that I really want to go with you on that one because I feel like when you branch out and do things that are different, you become more like worldly. You elevate your skill set, if you will. That's the easiest word I can say is like you just become more in tune to like learning different perspectives. And that's something that I really, really value. So back to your original question, going back to events, it depends on what you want to get out of it. Like if you're just there to like, let's connect with some people regionally, go to your regional event. ACC has them for your local chapter. Clock has them. All the organizations usually have regional events. But if you want to just say, hey, on a global scale, I want to see all these classes, I want to meet people from around the world, then that's when you go to like Clock or you go to ACC annual or something like that. And you can meet a whole plethora of people, if you will.
So, Brittany, let's dive a little more deeply into some of these themes you raised earlier about the stresses on legal practice and on in-house legal teams. We know that we're getting lots of data right now, in fact, from surveys showing teams being overworked, feeling that stress, risk of attrition. What are some of the factors of this that you're seeing? And let's kind of get into what does tech have to do with this? What can tech do to improve the situation? Is tech making the situation more challenging? What are you seeing out there?
To me, overwork happens when teams are buried in repetitive tasks and they have either mediocre or terrible leadership. And those two combined when you're doing tasks that you probably shouldn't be doing or things that are just on repeat and you have leadership that isn't supporting you and helping you grow, I think that's when the overwork and the burnout starts to happen. I think the key is really prioritizing work that drives the most value for the company and drives you as an individual, as a human, to do better for the company. Because if you're happy, you're going to enjoy your work and you're going to do a better job at your work. So I think really the key is prioritizing work that drives the most value and using technology to handle the repetitive stuff, if you will.
Can it also play a role in bringing the teams closer together? Because we're starting to hear so much more talk now about agentic uses of AI, where you're empowering the AI to make more decisions. And I think that is a really interesting step for legal. It's fascinating to look at. It is also fraught with potentially more peril than in some use cases. How does that play? Can that empower legal to do more? Can it help it communicate with the other teams and collaborate more effectively?
I think AI is really changing up the game, if you will. It's freeing up time by automating tasks that are repetitive that can be done by AI, if you will, and allowing more time for legal teams to work together on strategy, on creative problem solving, and really digging in on the future of where their legal department is going to head, instead of just being like, oh, we can't have these meetings that we feel are important because we're doing repetitive tasks that AI can handle and automating things that should be automated. And it's freeing up time for people to actually collaborate on their work. Like we said, collaboration's huge. And I think it gives more meaning to people when people are working together. Like some people love to work alone, but a lot of times people love to bounce ideas off of each other. And AI gives the ability for people to do that.
And how broadly do you define those repetitive tasks? I think that's where the line keeps moving.
So for me, it's more so repetitive tasks is different for everyone. So like you have companies right now that I took a demo with a company just to see like what they were doing, how they can redline a document for you, like on the first pass. To me, I'm still a little nervous about that. I obviously want to check, see if it aligns with what I normally do, that sort of thing. But like simple things like that. Then you have more things that can be more automated and be able to, I've seen it where like teams like ask questions and like they get responses that are simple, mundane answers that we no longer have to answer because they're already getting them answered. Making documents that we no longer have to make because AI is doing it for us. All those sort of things that are simple to do, but can be done quicker and faster. Writing letters, like I've seen a lot of in-house counsel write letters, or at least get a first draft of like, hey, here's what's in my mind. Can you put this together in a format for me? And I think that's some of the things that have been really crucial in the AI sphere, if you will. I actually was going to do a collaboration with this one company about AI and billing. And so they basically, if you're at a firm or if you bill, you don't have to do point 1, point 3, whatever. You don't have to keep track of your bills. AI does it for you. And then at the end of the day, you just review it to make sure it like all aligns and it looks formatted, if you will, whatever. And I think that just saves so much time to actually do the important things that we want to focus on, like strategy, like growth, et cetera, meeting clients, developing business, et cetera, that we couldn't do beforehand.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, the impact of AI is going to vary based off the different use cases. I'm curious specifically about M&A, because I know you have so much M&A experience. Curious on how the role of tech, what you're seeing there, how things have changed maybe from earlier in your career till now, maybe where things are going, just specifically on kind of, M&A, which of course consists of various activities.
Yeah. To me, M&A is like, it's a sweet spot. It's so impactful for so many companies to buy, sell, et cetera. I think you really learn how to holistically think with a business mindset, if you will. You learn strategy, you learn how to integrate culture, the whole picture. So not only are you working on an M&A deal from the beginning with your due diligence, that sort of thing, but then integrating a company, learning how to mesh with the culture, seeing how people operate, all those sort of things. And I think tech has really been a game changer in these deals, streamlining everything from diligence to post-closing, all that kind of stuff that was very manual and slow back in the day. And now deals can get done a lot quicker because technology is involved.
What have you seen change specifically over the last year to 2 years? Let's say 2023 and 2024. Obviously, we've had the rise of generative AI that's had a huge impact. But in terms of actually what's happening out there, both from what you've seen firsthand and what you've learned through your role with ACC, what do you think really is the tenor of what's going on out there? Is it more concern over the implications of AI for the legal role? Is it creative, structured, strategic adoption? Is it dipping the toe in the water? Where are we in all of this?
I think it depends on what organization you're speaking of, because I think different organizations take a different approach or more traditional. So they are beginning to see the value of tech and beginning to see the value of AI and things like that. Others are like, let's just dive in. And I love those ones. They're just like, we know it's going to come and we know it's staying. Like it's not going to go away anytime soon. So let's just dive in. So I really think it's a big focus on seeing how technology can make a role more efficient, if you will. And then really, even so much as like, we could dive into this for like an hour, but diving into how even helping remote workers, there's been a really big push ever since the pandemic about remote work. And I think it's so crucial, I can't speak today, crucial for someone's mindset, for someone's ability to be able to do what they need to do as a human and still get their work done. And if you hire correctly, remote work is not an issue. And I think that really plays into not only your hiring process and who you hire, but making sure you have the right tech so that people can do the things that they need to do to be valuable in their position.
So what's been evolving in legal operations generally and the way that it's perceived? We've seen this role grow. We've talked to a lot of folks about its evolution over the last decade. What's the state of the art today? What do you think is the perception of it today?
I think it's really divided, if I'm being honest. Even maybe when you and I were at Harvard, we had some people that had been doing this before it was even legal ops. They have been it for 20, 25 years. And some of the new modern ways of doing things, if you will, like, oh my God, there's just so much out there. And so you have the perspective of, I'm going to say this. If you're a modern legal team, you see the value in legal ops. You see the value in what it does to your operations, what it does to your strategy, what it does to your growth, and you see the value in it. If you think traditionally and you think, oh, legal doesn't need that. Legal ops is what I wanted when I hated my legal career. Like there's just so much that needed to be automated and tasks that just needed to be done by someone who was not legal counsel, if you will, in the legal ops space. And it has a profound impact on the legal team, on the business as a whole. And when you really dive into how much legal ops professionals can do and how much they're capable of and how great they are at what they do, you can really take your company to the next level with them. But if you choose to not have that mindset, you may not see the results of that right away, but you'll see it compound over time. And if I can give any advice, it's to be at the forefront of technology and really valuing legal operations, because that's where we're going to head.
I've got to say, I so relate to that. When I started practice, I don't know, you two were zygotes or something, and there was just so little to empower the tedium of what you were trying to do every day. And the most important thing to me was access to information, which was so hard to glean. I was trying to write effectively and advocate effectively, and I couldn't tell what information we had across tons of depositions and documents and discovery and interviewees and all of that. And when I started organizing that with the most rudimentary of computer tools, really, it just changed everything. So that's what put me on this path. And I feel like that has grown and grown and grown in terms of a sense of greater empowerment. And now I wonder, are we at a point where is that return continuing to grow? Or do we have at some point diminished expectations or just more concerns over the implications of tech? I'm curious for your take on that. Are we at any kind of inflection point with the technology? Is anything different now in terms of how we adapt and leverage the tech compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago?
I think people are nervous and hesitant because that's how, especially if you go to law school, that's how your mind's kind of develop. Like, be hesitant, be cautious, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, when ChatGPT came out, I was like, oh no, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. And that was probably like late February. By like mid-March, I was like, probably like one of their top users. I was like, oh, I love this thing. So it took me 2-3 weeks to even like wrap my mind around it. But now I love AI. I love ChatGPT. I love everything it can do. And I think you just have to have an open mind and really understand that, like, if you look back on the history of life, if you will, technology really has improved our society. So if you're open to that and open to what could we be down the road with technology, I think you're going to see a lot of great changes.
Excellent. I mean, to that end, like you said, it is a scary time for folks looking to get into this field. Every time you look at a list of things being automated, we're in the top 3 every single time. If you're actively taking out tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans to pursue this career as we speak, you've probably got a lot of questions and maybe some nervousness and maybe some kind of feelings in your stomach. Any advice to those folks kind of early in their journey, kind of coming into a rapidly evolving world?
Advice overall. So if you're in-house, if you're in business, et cetera, I really say my biggest thing is stay curious, stay open. Don't be afraid of technology. It's going to be your ally, not your competition. The faster you embrace technology, the more impact you're going to have not only on your career, but also on your well-being as well, because it's going to make certain things that you just don't need to do yourself easier for you. And just enjoy it. Enjoy your life. Enjoy everything that comes of it. Work is just a piece of your overall life. Don't let it consume you. If it feels like it's consuming you, reach out, ask for help, get different perspectives, and just really find something that makes you happy, especially if you're going to be doing it for 20, 30 years. It's just something that you really need to focus on.
So what's your gut on what's going to change in the coming year, in 2025? What do you see realistically happening across the industry?
Well, obviously, I think we've talked about it till we're blue in the face. Even here with a lot of industry events have talked about it till it's blue in the face. But AI obviously is going to revolutionize how we do our day-to-day. I think there'll be other technology that comes out that people will have to adapt to as well, that they'll probably enjoy. And just being really focused on how can we do our work, but do it in a way that is meaningful and impactful and not just routine, if you will, and actually making an impact on our organizations, whether you're sitting in a legal seat, whether you're sitting in a CEO suite, whatever the impact that you have on is more from a holistic impact and really diving into how people function, how people operate, how people think about how to grow an organization, not just from your day-to-day repetitive tasks. Business and legal are going to really integrate.
That's so incredible, Brittany. Speaking with you always leaves me smiling, and it's been such a joy talking with you today. If folks want to hear more from you, where can they find you?
So if you do Brittany Leonard on LinkedIn, I have heard that I'm the first one that pops up, and you can see my face and you'll see me there. You can also find me on Instagram on Legally Brittany, so LEGALLY, and then Brittany BRITTANY. TikTok, which I'm going to focus on next year more, because when you tell me it's going away in February, that means I'm going to go on to it because I like to break the rules. So that's legally_Brittany, and then email as well, the consulting email, but I'll just give you, it's just easier to remember, legallybrittany@gmail.com is email as well. So there's plenty of ways to find me, and I look forward to helping anybody that needs it.
Brittany, thanks for joining us today and wishing you a great and fulfilling 2025.
You as well, guys. You as well.
Meeting of the Minds, the Legal AI podcast, is brought to you by Eversort. To learn more about Eversort and how we can help you contract better with AI, visit Eversort, EVISORT.com.
You can find Meeting of the Minds on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to click subscribe so you won't miss future episodes.
On behalf of everyone here at Eversort, thanks for tuning in.